Hello and welcome to our Circle and Salve Women. I am looking a little bit rough right now because I have my painting shirt on, and that is exactly what I'll be doing with my husband today. It is project day, and so we are going to be repainting a room, and the reason why I am sharing this moment with you is just to let you know that a marriage of almost 30 years is not always so pretty. It is actually where you are being productive. You are working together to accomplish a goal where sometimes it's just on. Doesn't matter what you look like, and yet there's so many great things that come from it. And one of those great things is that moment that I have to be able to spend time with my husband and have just let loose conversation. Because what are you going to do with the time anyway? You know, it takes about a day or two. For us, it was about 2.5 days because we are going to let the primer dry in between. And then, you know, then after that, we're going to let the paint dry, and then the third day, then we're going to go ahead and fix all the little knickknacks that we've missed. But honestly, it's not about that. Even though you get to watch this video and you may have picked up a new skill on how to repaint a room, what I want you to also observe is that quality time that we are able to have with one another, and making sure that you understand that when you are too busy with life, these are the greatest moments. These are the priceless moments where you get to have your significant other alone with you, and you just have that all day, if not all weekend time, to speak to one another and just go about it with whatever goes into your mind, and get to know your partner or your spouse a little bit more. And hopefully you'll enjoy this video. Hopefully you'll get something out of it, whether it be how to repaint a room or just how to spend time together in accomplishing a goal. I put a lot of love into painting this room, every little circle, but it was simply time to let it go. Now, all that furniture, you want to make sure you move away from the wall to prepare to paint. But before you paint, you need your tools. You can see that some of the things we use were from the kitchen. And you need a liner for your paint tray, so make sure you get one of those along with the tray. You'll need your rollers, one for priming and the other one for painting. We didn't really use this, but it's always nice to have handy for those small little corners. We use this as we typically do when we're doing edges. It's nice to have all of your brushes that you would use in different sizes, different angles. We ended up using most of the time, if not the whole time, the angle brush, the small one. Now, you'll need a tray for the small parts when you're painting. If you don't have a liner, just use some plastic bag. Always nice to have. There's the wet rag, there's the dry rag. Doesn't have to be fancy or new. So you want to make sure you remove all of the outlets and anything that touches the wall. And here I am, just making sure I do all the prep and getting that all prepared before we even start moving on to the next step. Here's what the outlets look like. Make sure you're not touching any of the electrical wires in the back, of course. I'm using a flat spatula. I love the fact that it's so easy to go through the old caulk. And I'm using a hammer just to push through, but make sure obviously that you're not trying to cut into the wall. You're cutting more away from it as you continue to work to remove that mold. And you just have to take it an inch at a time. Be patient. You don't want to ruin the wall. I'm using also the butter knife because as you go down through the corners, you kind of want to use something that is maybe a little bit smaller, but I could have just used a spatula as well. Either one works. And as you can see, I decided to use a spatula once I broke through the old caulk. And there I am, starting to remove the very first molding. And you just have to be careful that, not to be impatient when you're pulling it off, because you obviously don't want to break the mold. You want to preserve it so that when you pop it back in, it'll be just as it was prior to you removing it. There's my thumbs up. First mold out. second one. There's my husband re-rolling blue tape. I told him I would not need that for any of the corners or frames. It's time to prepare to start priming. There's my edger. Making sure we don't have excess paint. Kind of fast forwarded it. And then here's the deal. You don't want to end up painting over any little corners or any frames that you may have. So that angled brush is always helpful.
Based off our adversities we're going through. Dang, you started young, had
My husband started to warm up.
You did good.
The things that he would like to share with me for the moment in time of another project. So I just let him talk. It's so nice to listen, just because you can reflect on, his thoughts as he continues to speak his mind. Nice to see the progress that we're making as he continues to talk. And there's the priming part done. Now here we are, ready to paint. And here's the second step, putting in some color. We're using a light blue gray to paint over the lime green that I had. Nice to see that the primer removed all of that. It's like starting anew, a fresh new start, fresh coat of paint about to be placed back onto the wall. Now, when you do these corners, it is so critical to not overlap or not have any excess paint. So you could see that if I start to see any drips, I dab it onto the wall, and that way it's not dripping down. The nice thing is that we are going to be changing the carpet. So we weren't too worried about covering the carpet. You probably were wondering why I hadn't shown that step, because in this case, we weren't worried about any drips on this carpet, since that would be our next plan, is to replace the carpet in this room. Now, luckily I have very steady left hand, so you could see that as I am working on this side, I am still being careful. Even though it's the back side of the door, you know that, every error that you make. And so I'm doing my best to just be careful with the edges in those little tiny corners and peaks, so that I don't end up painting over the door. And it takes some time, but it's the critical time, just to make sure that you're doing it right. So you could see that I'm working through all the way to the bottom. I mean, the people who are the forerunners who had no guidance, those are the ones that you have to commend, because do you know what it's like to have 79 cents and be grateful so you can buy a chicken soft taco with hot sauce? So sometimes you get very passionate about the conversations you have, and so you got to hear a little bit of my emotions push through that part. And now it's time to do those corners, get this done. Just about there. My husband is actually rolling, using the big roller as I am doing the edges. It's such great teamwork that we have. And this is what it looks like. Now you may not see the little white spots, but once it dries, it really starts to push out. And you want to step back. You could see that I kind of closed in on those little white spots. And when you see those, it is time to take that small little brush and paint over those pieces that you miss, or those spots that you miss.
Well, there you go. Thank you for watching. Hopefully it was fun for you as it was fun for us. The finished product is always a beautiful part of it all, because you get to look back and go, I did that. And we truly, truly had some great conversations within that time frame. And hopefully you will get to catch some with your significant other or your spouse as well in the near future, if you haven't already. And if you have, share some. Thank you for being here. And as my mom always says, God bless us all.